Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here. In this video, we're going to take a first look at the Week 11 NFL slate on Draftkings. We're going to talk through this slate. These are my first looks. I haven't done any research. I'm recording this video on Tuesday. We're going to talk through each position. As we go, we will build out a first look lineup, more cash game based. Just kind of talk through some players that stand out early on in the week just based on their matchup, their price tag, if they should see a lot of volume or not, if they're underpriced for the volume they should see. We'll do that at each position. I'll try and keep this video within about 20-25 minutes. Just a few things before we do get started. As always, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like down below. Be sure to leave a comment as well. Comment anything you see on this Week 11 slate. Some of your favorite plays that stand out to you early on in the week. Maybe how you did last week in Week 10. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. I do have a ton of NFL content coming out every week, along with NBA videos that I'll be uploading daily as well. So we'd greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe, and be sure to follow me on Twitter at DFS by Noah. You can always stay up to date with me on Twitter. But let's go ahead and take a look at quarterback for this Week 11 slate. So just talking cash game based, I usually always try and pay down. That's something I mention in like every video, every first look video. This week at the top, we do have Lamar Jackson, 7,700 at home against the Texans. I haven't looked at game totals for this slate, but I would imagine this Houston-Baltimore game has probably the highest total on the slate, if not one of the highest totals. Lamar Jackson, even though he only threw the ball 17 times last week against the Bengals, still had 33 DraftKings points. He was 15 for 17, completed 88% of his passes, 223 passing yards, and 3 passing touchdowns. He was very efficient. Also ran the ball 65 yards and a rushing touchdown as well. Had 7 rushing attempts, 65 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Had a crazy long, like 47-yard touchdown where he had a spin move. I mean, Lamar Jackson's probably the favorite for the MVP right now. It's between like him or Russell Wilson. I mean, so Jackson's a great play. Obviously, it's gonna be really tough to get him in cash games. It usually always is. I know people played him in cash last week, and I don't think that was a bad move by any means. But I usually try and prioritize the expensive running backs and receivers. So for that reason, like I can't get up to Jackson in cash normally. So we're not going to include him in the first look lineup, but maybe if we get some value throughout the week, there are some injuries we're waiting on to see if guys are going to play this week or not. Maybe that'll open up some more value. If I can pay up for Jackson, I mean, he's probably the highest projected quarterback on the slate by a pretty wide margin. But then you have guys like Drew Brees, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't really have a ton of interest in any of these guys this week. Like, none of them catch my eye for cash games at least. Like, Drew Brees going on the road into Tampa Bay is a really good matchup. But for $6,900, I think I'll just try and find $800 and get up to Lamar Jackson if possible. I feel like if I'm not paying up for Lamar Jackson, I'm probably going to a guy like Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston's someone that really stands out at home against the Saints in a game that does have shootout potential. $6,500 for Winston. He looks really good on this slate. If we're just looking for cheap value, I mean, Derek Carr feels a bit overpriced, but his matchup is really good at home against the Bengals. So he's someone that stands out. There's definitely a couple of values I want to talk about. Andy Dalton facing the Raiders. That's a really good matchup. Kyle Allen at home against the Falcons. I feel like is probably going to be the chalk quarterback this week, and I think he makes a lot of sense as our quarterback to go to in this first look lineup. It's just such a good matchup. I mean, this Falcons team has really struggled this season defensively. They've been one of the worst pass defenses. You got a pretty good game last week from Kyle Allen. Finally threw for over 300 yards. That's the first time he's thrown for over 300 yards this season. Completed 65% of his passes, did have a passing touchdown. He doesn't really run the ball much. I mean, usually he'll scramble and get maybe like 5 or 6 rushing yards. He's not much of a rusher. So the way Allen pays off this price tag is just, if this game can stay close and they have to throw, I mean, Kyle Allen could throw the ball 35 times in this game. 300 yards and multiple touchdowns, excuse me, is definitely on the table against this Falcons defense. So I really like Kyle Allen here. He really stands out as one of the top values at quarterback for $5,300. Like I said, you could go up to Jackson. Jameis Winston, someone that I like, but I feel like quarterback, I'm probably going to be trying to save with Kyle Allen just given his price tag. He's going to project really well points per dollar wise, so he does make a lot of sense for cash games this week. Now moving on to running back for cash games, I mean, Christian McCaffrey is going to be someone I just try and play every week if possible. I played him last week against Green Bay. I know there were some sharp players that didn't pay up for Christian McCaffrey, which I don't think was a bad mistake, but me personally, I feel like Christian McCaffrey is just one of those guys I want to have in my cash game lineup every week as long as the price is like not too expensive. $10,500 I don't think is too expensive of a price tag, especially because I have a feeling we're going to have some value on this slate. The matchup's really good as well at home against the Falcons. We're definitely going to start with Christian McCaffrey at running back. The matchup's so good. This Falcons team, we know throughout the past, has been a terrible defense against pass-catching running backs, and that's obviously what Christian McCaffrey is best at. This guy, it seems like if he's not getting 100 rushing yards, he's getting you multiple touchdowns. Even the games where he doesn't get 100-plus rushing yards, he's getting to the end zone at least once or twice. McCaffrey just has such a high floor. The ceiling is obviously there as well. It's a great spot. Love Christian McCaffrey this week. If he was like 11K, I think it would be definitely like a question whether or not you should pay up for him. At 10,500 in a matchup like this, I think I'm just going to plug him in and then I'll find value elsewhere. So plugging in Christian McCaffrey as our top running back, it's going to be hard to get to guys like Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Fournette. I mean, you could argue saving the money and going down to like Ezekiel Elliott. He's in a really good spot against the Lions. Lions have really struggled against the run this season. Dalvin Cook against the Broncos, 8,900 just feels too cheap for Dalvin Cook for the workload that he has. Just gets 20 carries every game, it seems like. Last week against Dallas in a competitive game, he got 26 carries for Dalvin Cook, 97 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown. Also had 7 catches for 86 yards. I mean, the dude has one of the most secure workloads in the NFL right now, right next to Christian McCaffrey. Him and McCaffrey are like two of the biggest workhorse backs in the league. So if I can get like McCaffrey and Cook, I will definitely try and do that. But just building a lineup out before I started recording, it is going to be pretty tough to do that this week. You're going to have to make some sacrifices. Like you're going to have to either punt tight end, which I don't really know if I want to do this week. You're going to have to like pay up or pay down for 3 receivers, and I think there are some good receiver options to pay up for. So we're not going to include Cook in there for now. Just looking in some of these mid-range options, I think Josh Jacobs is a guy that really stands out at home against the Bengals. Great matchup. Jacobs has been smashing lately. The workload's been there as well. He's getting 15 to 20 carries every game. They've been using him a little bit more in the passing game as well. This is a game that you expect Oakland to be able to win and to have a lead. So Jacobs should be fed in this game. The Bengals have one of the worst run defenses in the league. 6,900 for Josh Jacobs. He is firmly in play. But I think if Matt Breida misses this week, and Breida looks like he is going to sit, I think Tevin Coleman at 6,100 is probably one of the best running back plays on the slate. Just looking at this slate first looks, I mean, Coleman was someone that really stood out to me, especially if Matt Breida winds up sitting. If Breida does wind up sitting, it was a pretty 50-50 split, like 50-50 even split between these two guys. I expect Coleman to get a large majority of that work now. You're going to have guys like Mostert getting carries, but it'll probably be more like a 70-30 split rather than 50-50 with Mostert. And Coleman's one of those guys, he can kind of do it all. He's a really good rusher. It's a great matchup at home against the Cardinals. He can catch balls out of the backfield as well. He is used in the passing game. So I really like Tevin Coleman in this matchup. The fact that Matt Breida is probably going to miss this game makes him a top running back play for me, in my opinion. But then other running backs, I mean, even in a game where the Bengals got absolutely destroyed by the Ravens, Joe Mixon still touched the ball 32 times, had 30 carries, 114 rushing yards, and 2 catches, 37 yards, 20 DraftKings points in that game. They clearly just want to give the ball to Joe Mixon as much as possible. He can be used in the passing game as well. He's a pretty effective pass-catching running back. The matchup against Oakland, I wouldn't say is great. I mean, Oakland does have a solid run defense, but still, Joe Mixon 5,500 is in play this week. I have a feeling. I don't know if I can prioritize him over Tevin Coleman. I think Tevin Coleman is just going to be a lock and load at 6,100, but maybe Joe Mixon as an RB3 could make a lot of sense. You could use him in your flex spot. Seeing a guy like David Johnson at 5,100 really catches my eye, but David Johnson just hasn't been used in this offense recently. I mean, I don't even think he touched the ball last week against Tampa Bay. He touched the ball. He got 5 carries for 2 rushing yards, 1 catch for 8 yards. They're just not using him in the offense right now. He's very risky, even though he's incredibly cheap. It's going to be hard to trust David Johnson, even with a really cheap price tag. I think the guy that's probably going to be popular this week as a value running back is Brian Hill. It seems pretty likely that Devontae Freeman is not going to play this week, and if that's the case, Brian Hill will be the starting running back for the Falcons. DraftKings did price him up a little bit to 4,800, but honestly, that might be too cheap here for a matchup against the Panthers. The Panthers have really struggled against the run this season. Hill can be used in the passing game. He's a pretty good pass-catching back. Even if they're trailing in this game, I still expect Hill to get plenty of volume in the pass game. So for only 4,800 against a really bad run defense, Brian Hill definitely stands out as a value running back. And I think we can for sure plug him in our flex spot for now. If we have salary to upgrade to one of the expensive running backs, we could be able to do that. But I have a feeling Brian Hill is going to be a lock and load for the flex at 4,800. So Once we plug in those 3 running backs, that leaves us 46.60 remaining per player. So we're going to have to definitely find value at receiver, which we will talk about. But I don't really think there's any other cheap running backs I really want to go to besides Brian Hill. Maybe J.D. McKissic if Ty Johnson is out. Ty Johnson did get hurt in that last game against the Bears. McKissic is a guy that can do his damage in the passing game, which is very valuable on DraftKings. Got 6 catches last week. This is a game, this game should be close. Detroit and Dallas. Detroit playing at home. This will probably be a close game, but McKissic will see plenty of work in the passing game regardless. So he does make plenty of sense as a value. I think I would much rather have Brian Hill for just 200 more. But if Ty Johnson is out, McKissic's definitely going to be at least an option we can consider. But that's probably it for running back values that I see. Let's go ahead and move on to receiver now. So Michael Thomas up to 9,900 on DraftKings. It's a great spot for Michael Thomas, but I don't know if we're going to be able to play him in cash games this week. It's just going to be really tough to fit him in with Christian McCaffrey, and I think just choosing between Thomas and McCaffrey, given only the $600 difference, I would just much rather have Christian McCaffrey. Michael Thomas, this dude's a beast. He's going to go out there and get 10 catches, feels like almost every week. It feels like he's a lock for 10 catches, 100 yards almost every week. And if he doesn't get that, he's at least getting into the end zone once. Last week against the Falcons in a great spot. The Saints only scored 9 points, didn't even score a touchdown, but Michael Thomas still had 13 catches for 152 yards, 31 DraftKings points. The dude has a very solid floor. He's giving you a 15, 20-point floor this season, but with him being 9,900, it's really tough to get him in this week at that price tag. You can save like $3,000 and play guys that project probably 5 to 10 points less. So honestly, that might be the way to go this week. Guys like Hopkins, Cooper, Edelman, I don't think I'm going to be able to get to them in cash games. I think my preferred route would probably be to look to someone like Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. I really like this spot for both guys. It seems likely that Marshawn Lattimore could miss this game, the top corner for the Saints. If that's the case, it becomes a much easier matchup for Evans and Godwin. I know when the Saints have played the Bucs in the past, Lattimore has shadowed Mike Evans, which has kind of led to Chris Godwin seeing a lot of volume. If Lattimore plays, I imagine he will shadow Evans. If he doesn't play, I'm going to have a lot of interest in both guys. Just choosing between the two, though, I think I'm going to side with Godwin, 7,300. Both guys had really good games last week. Both guys saw a ton of volume. Not really great volume for Evans. 6 targets, 4 catches, 82 yards, 12 DraftKings points. Godwin, on the other hand, did see quite a bit of volume. 12 targets last week, 6 catches, 74 yards. It's so hard to predict which one of these guys is going to have the big game. Right now, I'm siding with Godwin just because I think he's going to have a much easier matchup, especially if he plays in the slot. He'll be matched up with P.J. Williams, who has struggled quite a bit this season for the Saints. You can't go wrong with either guy. I feel like Godwin and Evans are both going to be viable cash plays this week, especially because Michael Thomas is so expensive, and I think it's going to be hard to get him in cash games. So now we got 4K remaining per player, so we're definitely going to need value. We can go ahead and plug in a cheap defense to kind of see where we stand with the rest of our lineup. I usually just try and find the cheapest home defense that I like. The Lions are 1,800 at home against the Cowboys. Dak Prescott, he's not an elite quarterback by any means. He'll definitely get sacked and turn the ball over. So I don't mind plugging in the Lions defense for 1,800. Usually I never pay like more than 3K for a defense unless there's a defense that just really stands out that's in a great spot. And I don't think that's really the case this week. Maybe the Vikings you could look to, maybe the Colts, 3,200. Panthers are probably in a good spot defensively, or with their defense, but I have a feeling I'm going to be playing a lot of Falcons this week, especially like Brian Hill. We'll talk about a cheap receiver that I'll be looking to. So I think just plugging in the Lions at 1,800 really makes a lot of sense. Once we plug them in, that leaves us 47.33 remaining for 2 wide receiver spots and a tight end spot. So we're probably going to have to find some value at receiver. Just looking at these 6K range guys that stand out, I think DJ Moore, 5,900, catches by eye a lot at home against the Falcons. Such a good matchup. DJ Moore's been targeted a ton recently. The volume's clearly been there. Double-digit targets in 3 of his last 4 games. Been producing very well. Also, I know Curtis Samuel's really cheap. He's another guy that you can maybe look to. Curtis Samuel's down here at 5,300, $600 less than DJ Moore. He's for sure in play as well, just seeing a ton of volume as well. But I think Tyler Boyd's a guy that I really like against the Raiders. The way you beat this Raiders team is through the air. They're a tough team to run on, but you can definitely pass against them. And Tyler Boyd's just one of those guys that gets consistent volume every week. I did talk about him in the first look video last week. I didn't wind up playing him because there was just better plays I felt like as we got on throughout the week. Honestly feel like Tyler Boyd's one of the clear options in this 5K range. Even with Ryan Finley at quarterback last week, you still got 8 targets for Tyler Boyd, 6 catches for 62 yards. That was a tough matchup against the Ravens. This is a much better matchup against the Raiders, a much worse defense. I believe A.J. Green's still going to remain out as well. I don't think he's going to play at all this season. So I like plugging in Boyd at 5,200, and that leaves us 4,500 remaining for a wide receiver and a tight end. And there's definitely a cheap wide receiver that I want to talk about. I have a feeling he's going to be pretty popular this week, but it makes a lot of sense. So we have Russell Gage all the way down here at 3,300. Just the last 2 weeks, he's gotten 14 targets. Since the Mohamed Sanu trade, we've really seen Russell Gage just step into a bigger role, be more productive. 9 targets in that game against Seattle, 7 catches, 58 yards. Last week against the Saints, 4 catches, 23 yards, which obviously isn't great. But we do know that the Falcons could be missing Austin Hooper for this game. Austin Hooper is a guy that does see quite a bit of volume in this pass offense. So really, I mean, if Hooper's out, it's going to be Julio, Ridley, and Gage just pretty much seeing all the volume. And with Gage being so cheap at 3,300, for cash games, even if he gets you 10 DraftKings points, he's paying off this $3,300 salary. He's going to allow you to fit in the guys like McCaffrey. If you want to pay up for Zeke, Dalvin Cook, those players with incredibly high floors and high ceilings, Gage is going to allow you to do that. So I really like Russell Gage's value. Have a feeling he's going to be chalky this week, but it makes a lot of sense to save with him at wide receiver for cash. And then that leaves us 5,700 for tight end. So there's multiple ways you could go here. You could play Austin Hooper at 5,600. Darren Waller is someone that I like a lot at home against the Bengals. Really good spot, bad Bengals defense. Waller hasn't been producing well lately. The targets haven't been there, but this is still one of the better tight ends in the league. This is still a guy that's going to see a ton of volume. Now he gets a really good matchup against a bad Bengals defense. So I like Darren Waller quite a bit. And that can finish out our first look lineup. This is definitely a first look lineup that I do like quite a bit. Obviously, this will probably not be the lineup that I play come Sunday, but I usually like to start, like, instead of throwing in a dummy lineup with players that aren't playing, if by some chance, like, something happens and I can't edit my lineups, I at least want to have a lineup in there where I know I'm going to have guys that are going to be on the field and can get points, rather than just plugging in a bunch of minimum price guys as a dummy lineup. So that's kind of the first look lineup for this week. I really like where I'm at right now. I kind of really like how this slate is setting up. I have a feeling we're going to be like loading up on McCaffrey. Tevin Coleman's probably going to be chalky this week if Breida sits. Russell Gage is going to be really popular. But then, like, after that, I mean, there's a lot of ways to go. I mean, Lamar Jackson could be a guy that gets a lot of ownership. I think we're definitely going to see ownership go to Kyle Allen. Wide receiver, I'm going to be very interested to see how owned Michael Thomas is at 9,900. Just given that salary, if people are going to pay up for him in cash games this week. Kind of a lot of questions that we got to answer as the week goes on. But I think that's it for the first look video, guys. As always, I will have my final look video, my final thoughts. Most likely will go up on Friday. So make sure you check that video out. I'll do more research as the week goes on. We'll have more clarity on injury news and just stuff like that. So if you enjoyed, make sure you drop a like down below. I would greatly appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Like always, if you have questions or want to leave any feedback, feel free to do so down below in the comment section. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at DFS by Noah as well. And I think that's it, guys. Good luck this week. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.